Hello and welcome. I'm Vishnu. You're watching NDTV's YouTube channel. And what I'd like to focus on today is a story which really affects the entire world. It's the US getting into an agreement with the Taliban, in the process trying to exit eventually Afghanistan. It's a story which is fairly close to me. Back in 2001, I was right on the front lines in Afghanistan, literally a few hundred meters away from the barricade set up by the Taliban between the Northern Alliance to the front, which was a liberated area, and the Taliban, which along with the Al-Qaeda was in charge in Kabul. And from the perch where we were in a bombed out cement factory in a place called Charikar near Kabul, we were able to actually witness firsthand the American attacks on Kabul, the air attacks, and the first several waves of air attacks which took place. And then eventually that resulted in the retreat of the decimation of the Al-Qaeda and the retreat of the Taliban. And now 19 years later, that war that America waged, which we all believed at that stage would possibly be a successful campaign, it's now quite clear that that's not happened. In fact, 19 years later, you wouldn't be incorrect if you were to say that America might just have lost the Afghanistan war in very much the same way as the Soviets had lost in the 70s and early 80s. So again, to draw this back to the point that I'm trying to make, tomorrow America gets into a peace deal with the Taliban. It's taking place in Qatar. There are negotiators who've been trying to bring this together for a long time. There is a recognition on the part of the United States that, look, perhaps it's time to get out of Afghanistan. The goal is this, that they would try and draw down their strength from approximately 14,000 plus to about 8,600 to 9,000 soldiers on the ground. And the belief is that if the peace holds in Afghanistan, then within a finite period of approximately 14 odd months, America would be able to remove all of their soldiers from the ground. But the prospect of having the Taliban in charge in Afghanistan is a matter of a great deal of concern to a lot of people. But it's also perhaps, in a sense, a recognition of the fact that you've not won against the Taliban, which, as a matter of fact, controls approximately 50% of territory in Afghanistan. The areas which are not the major cities, Herat or Kabul or Jalalabad or Mazar to the north, but other areas are areas which the Taliban does in fact control. So what is in it for Afghanistan? What is in it for the Taliban? For starters, the Taliban wants 5,000 of their fighters to be removed from jails, from Afghan jails, and they want tens of thousands of Taliban sympathizers and supporters to be reintegrated into Afghan society. The Afghan government, which under President Ghani wants this deal to go through, has been saying that they want to find a solution for a lasting peace. They want to talk about minority rights. They want to talk about the rights of women. And they want to, more than anything else, want to ensure, with the assistance of the Taliban, that the IS, the Islamic State, and Al-Qaeda are not allowed to get a foothold into Afghanistan. So those are the demands on either side, and obviously America is willing to get into this peace agreement, which would see them draw down their numbers if there was just 7 days of relative peace, and that has taken place. So in the last 7 odd days, there has been more than a 90% drop in the instances of violence in Afghanistan, which to America and to Donald Trump is apparently good enough for them to allow this to go through with the hope that there would be a lasting peace in Afghanistan. Those who observe Afghanistan very closely and about the Taliban and of the dynamics in Taliban say that this is a return to an abyss, a fall into a chaos which is all too familiar in Afghanistan. Quite besides the peace agreement, the Taliban itself is not united in Afghanistan. There are different factions. Some are more armed than the others. The Haqqani network, which is one of the Taliban factions which have a very important role in the country, they are a violent group. They have been entirely associated with terrorism and with suicide bomb attacks, and yet that is one of the parties who are a part of this entire process. Whether the negotiators or the mediators representing the Taliban in trying to get this deal actually speak for a lot of the senior leadership of the Taliban or not, we still don't know at this juncture. So where does that leave India? So India is tomorrow going to be an observer. We have observer status in the peace deal signing in Doha. Our ambassador will be representing India. And India has its concerns. We don't talk to terrorists. We don't. That's our policy. We've done it in the past when in the case of the IC-814 hijacking in Kandahar, when terrorists were released. But we don't want to do that anymore. So therefore, when one sees one's closest strategic ally, arguably one's closest strategic ally, talk about anti-terrorism with India and then go ahead and sign a peace deal with the Taliban just a few days after Donald Trump leaves India, it is certainly a matter of consternation for New Delhi. So tomorrow India will be an observer over there. They'll be watching this process very, very closely. Everybody wants a lasting peace. But I think as far as India's investments in Afghanistan are concerned, India would be very concerned about all of the investments which we have put into Afghanistan over a long period of time. It's been far less direct military and much more humanitarian aid, running hospitals, funding schools, funding the construction of the Afghan parliament, helping in elections in Afghanistan. And yes, training of military officers as well, the transfer of military helicopters. These are things which Delhi has done, road construction, India has done, which have had a huge positive impact in Afghanistan, a country where we've got an incredible reputation and an incredible amount of goodwill. And that's gone on and been stretched for generations. So India doesn't want the possibility of an Afghanistan returning to an abyss, because that, without any doubt, affects regional order. And so we would be looking with a great deal of concern at a peace deal which takes place tomorrow.